you for that suggestion there, Greg. All right, let's move on now to this is going to lead into our one of the topics tonight. And shout out to Chris and he says, what are the chances Goot doesn't want to extend Tom? And that's why he has Morgan and Belton. They never pay more than 3 guys, and they already have Banks and Jenkins paid. They end up paying Sheed instead of Tom because it's maybe $5 million less per season. Or Goot ends up paying another high-price guard and starts Morgan and Belton at tackles because it's now an emphasis on the power run game with Jacobs and interior 3. Thoughts? I think that's very well constructed there, Chris. I think you've thought it through. I think that's an option. If it's me, if you're asking what do I think Goody does, I think Goody wants most, if not all, these guys back for the right price, and we know he's not going to get them for the right price, not all of them. So that's where you got to kind of pick and choose, and that's where it goes into our topic here this evening. And let's just dive right into it here, boys. Thanks for everybody with the Patreon questions. Let's start with Elgton Jenkins here, okay? And Elgton Jenkins's conversation is going to lead into the Zack Tom conversation, okay? So you guys kind of hang with me here a second. As we now have confirmation through Jason Wilde, who said his source, and he feels really good about his source. He did not say this, so please don't misquote me here. I'm not trying to misquote him. I think his source is Elgton Jenkins. We know Wilde exchanges phone numbers with players on the team. So I think this whole time, when he first mentioned this, and if you guys watch Wilde and Tausch, they had several viewers in the YouTube chat that just, tried to dunk on him and say he's just making up drama. This whole time, I think that if it's not Elgton Jenkins, it's somebody really, really close to him in his camp. That's my guess, okay? So let's just kind of dive into the whole situation here, all right? Elgton Jenkins seeks contract adjustment amid move to center, skips Packers offseason workouts, all right? So like Wilde said, this has nothing to do with the position change. He's okay with that. We heard Adam Stenovich also say the conversations they had, he was totally good with that. This is more about how his current contract sits, all right? I'm just going to dive into the article here a little bit, and this is a shorter article with a lot of screen grabs that we'll kind of explain as we go. Green Bay Packers two-time Pro Bowl offensive lineman Elgton Jenkins has been absent from the team's voluntary offseason workouts, according to ESPN NFL reporter Rob Demovsky, which when Rob put that out, I immediately thought Wilde first reported this, and then Wilde quote tweeted. You guys know he and Rob are pretty close, so both working for ESPN. Jenkins' absence stems from his desire for a contract restructuring to better reflect his upcoming transition to the center position full-time, a move prompted by the Packers' recent signing of free agent Aaron Banks to a 4-year, $77 million deal to play left guard, Jenkins' previous position. All right, we're going to get into all the cap numbers. I just wanted a quick little refresh here. This is what Elgton Jenkins' PFF grades have been throughout his entire career, okay? And you guys tell me, I know Ryan has been pretty vocal about this, that Elgton hasn't been as good of a player as he showed with his ceiling here lately, and I have to agree with it. I think he's a good to very good offensive lineman, don't get me wrong. But PFF grades, 69.2, 67.7. He peaked in 2021 where he jumped to an 82.1. I believe that was an all-pro year. And then 2022, he falls back to a 72.3. 2023, he falls back even further to a 65.4. And then last year, he kind of stabilized, increasing just a touch at 66.1. Now, the key grades here, obviously, is the pass block grades that we know Goody absolutely loves, right? Pass block grades the last 2 years, 83.1 and 81.3. So that's been his strength. Now, when you move to center, theoretically speaking, it's easier to play center than it is guard in terms of, from a physical standpoint. I think Elgton could probably play that up to 32 or 33 years old. The question is our boy Leo DiCaprio Gutekunst going to want to keep him around that long, right? So PFF grades, does that catch you guys off guard? Is that kind of what you expected? I want to get your all's take on that first.
I mean, I'm sure we'd love 21 and 22 Elgton back again, but like you said, he's getting a little older. I don't think he's fallen off a cliff by any means.
Right.
Still a hell of a lineman. Arguably like you said, other than Zack Tom, probably our best O-lineman on the team. But I guarantee you Goody's having those thoughts. If we extend him, how long? And, how much are we willing to really, pay the man, I guess. And I think it's true that, moving from left guard to center is not not an issue. That's not,
Right.
the determining factor for Elgton. But I do think he wants to get paid, and I think he wants some security beyond 30 years old in Green Bay. So I don't know. Time will tell, right? I mean, what do you think, Excelio?
Absolutely. I think J. Cole, exactly where I was going. Consistency is key. That's how that's how you determine how great you are in the NFL. Obviously, everyone has the skill to get there. Greatness comes from how consistent you can be week in, week out. And then again, you look at his pass blocking, it's only gone up besides 22. A little hiccup there, but he's getting better each year. I mean, he's still on the up and up. He played center at Mississippi State, right? So he knows what he's doing there. He's been there before. He gets it all. He gets all of it. And like we always talk about, he's pretty much a team guy. So it sucks that we're going through this, contract, whatever it is. But everyone else is getting paid. You brought in a guy from another team, one of our rivals, and you can't give me a little bit more. I get what he's trying, I get what he's saying, or he just wants to lock it in. If I'm really going to move position and hold this line down, let's make it worth it a little bit.
Yeah. Pac Fan Iowa says he will be better at center, easier position, but he's worth another 2 or 3 years. And when you say easier position, it's not that it's overall easy. Physically, yes, because most of the time you're going to be in 11 personnel, and guys like to run those split fronts, right? They like to, and it kind of puts the center out there by himself where he can just kind of help with a double team block most of the time if they're only rushing forward. Now, obviously, you got to pick up the twists, the stunts, and all that. But the big thing is what makes it so valuable, and in my opinion, it's way more valuable than guard, although salary cap ramifications would suggest otherwise. Me personally, it's about being able to lead that offensive line, get you into the right protection, identifying the mock, helping the quarterback take that off his plate to a certain extent. You're the quarterback of the offensive line being right there in the center. I think that's where Elgton will absolutely thrive for sure. Greg Rice says, why do you think many players dislike PFF? I always crack up at this, Greg. And again, you guys know how I feel about PFF. I don't think it's the gospel, right? I think it's another tool we can use. But tell me when you've heard a player complain about their PFF grade being too high. You see what I'm saying? Like the only time they complain is when it's low. So take that for there you go. Take that for what it's worth. That's just kind of how I see it for sure. All right, moving along, the article says the Mosque reports that Jenkins, who signed a 4-year, $68 million extension in December of 22, is not opposed to playing center but seeks financial stability for the switch. The current contract, with an average annual value of $17 million, positions Jenkins among the highest paid centers in the NFL, but its structure was designed for him to remain a guard or potentially move to tackle, not center. With base salaries of $11.7 million in 2025 and $18.5 million in 26, none guaranteed, Jenkins is looking to secure his future earnings given the positional change. So here is what the issue is more about. And I apologize if you guys can't read this, but I'm just going to kind of lay it out for you here. This year, Elgton Jenkins' cap hit is $17.6 million. There is $9.6 million in dead cap attached. What that means is if they were to cut him outright this year, they would free up $8 million in cap space. Okay. Now, post June 1, you can kind of flip that and maneuver a little bit, but just let's pretend as if he wasn't on the roster pre-June 1, which is right around the corner. That's how much cap space you would save. His cap hit being at 17.6, although it's high amongst centers, and we'll talk about you can actually see this graphic right here where he falls. That would make him, and again, cap hit wise, this is average annual value that I've got pulled here. So you can make the numbers say whatever you want them to say. But average annual value gives you kind of the entirety of the contract, and then the cap hit is, of course, how the money is allocated throughout the cap. So with him, being at a $17.6 million cap hit, he's going to be somewhere in the top 5, maybe top 6 of centers, highest paid centers in the league. Now, back to his contract up here. With this 2026 number, right, his cap number jumps to $24.8 million. People hear that and go, what are we doing, right? Well, again, just like the article said, it was geared toward he may end up playing tackle, right? Well, now he's going towards center, which typically make less money than guards, to the best of my understanding, depending on whether you're looking at the guarantee, the overall, however you want to look at it. They didn't plan on him playing at $24.8 million, right? They either planned on he's going to be 31 years old, we move on, or we're going to restructure that and try to free up a little cap space and bring that number down. So his dead cap attached is only $4.8 million. So what that tells you is you can free up a little less than 20 mil. Actually, a little over $20 million in caps, right at $20 million in cap space. Let's just make it a round number. If you cut him outright, Elgton sees that, guys, and he knows 31 years old. If he gets cut and hits the free agent market, he ain't sniffing that amount of money.
Right.
So what he's doing is saying, hey, how about a little more guaranteed money?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what this is about. It has nothing to do about moving to center. And early on when we're reporting on it and kind of reading the tea leaves, we're trying to find out, does he not want to play center? Is it about his contract? What could it possibly be? That's what this is about. I want to get your all's take so far, and I'll give you what I think the solution is to this issue, and obviously wanting to get him into the offseason program. But we'll start with you this time, Emilio. What do you think, man, about everything we covered there? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think now is his time. If he didn't do it now, next year he'd be in a real world of trouble. Obviously, he had more signing bonus back in 22. The $5,000 when his base salary was down. I think that they could maybe talk to him. Hey, we'll give you a little bit more on signing bonus. Maybe bring that base down a little bit and give you a couple more years. We want you to stay. I wouldn't be mad at having him and Jordan Love for the next 3-4 years there. But that means you got to set up the contract for add on another 4 or 5 years with void year maybe at the end. Figure out how you want to spread that out and how long are we going to keep him after 30. So I think that's kind of really the hiccup. But right now is his time. If he were to hold out, right now is the time to do it so that he can get paid and then just move ahead and just play football.
Yeah,
I agree. And then you see what he's due in 2026, and then just looking down the list here, you see Creed Humphrey, Cam Jurgens. I think Big E is probably worth north of 17.5, 18 plus per year. But how do you get that number down, in relation to your cap hit, going beyond, again, like Emilio said, well past 30 years old. Again, not a huge deal, especially for a center. We've seen guys play that position, pretty long into their career, and Elton's just getting started here. So that's what's kind of interesting. Making this move this late in his career. So could he play another, 3 to 5 more seasons as a center? I think so. The question is, how do we pay him and Zack Tom?
Yeah, to me that number is 3, Tim. I think he could probably play to 33 or 34 just based off of the recent history. People like Jason Kelce, guys like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's going to be a Jason Kelce level center. Don't get me wrong, but the numbers would suggest he should be one of, if not the best centers in the game. Right.
Okay.
So Emilio kind of alluded to it, and this is how I see it. What I would do to fix this problem is I would go to Elton and say, all right, man, here's the deal, big dog. You are due $18.5 million in base salary next year. How much guaranteed money are you thinking here? And let's say he comes up and goes, hey, can we convert $5 million of that? And if that's the case, you know what I would do? So if you convert $5 million of that into signing bonus and tack on 2 voidable years and just spread it out 2.5 for 27 and 28, that reduces that cap hit significantly. I would actually go a step further. I'd go, how about this? How about we give you $7 million fully guaranteed, and then you take $2 million extra off the base salary? Because the reality is the Packers are not in a great cap situation next year as it sits right now. As you can see the cap rankings, this is for 2026, and this is going to change. This is going to shuffle as contracts get reworked and all that. But as it sits right now, the Packers are 26th in the NFL next year in cap space at only $1.6 million. So this makes sense for the Packers to want to restructure to free up cap space for next year, right, and lower that overall cap number. And it also makes sense for Elgton Jenkins to want a little bit of guaranteed money, a little bit of security to know he's not just going to get cut outright next year and free up. Now, I will say this. Another option, as we'll probably talk about here in a minute with the article. Matter of fact, let's just move through it right here. With the Packers being low on cap space for the 2026 season, the answer to the Elgton Jenkins issue for both parties would be to guarantee a decent portion of his remaining contract. It would provide the security that he's seeking, per Jason Wilde's source, like we talked about, right? While also allowing the Packers to lower the cap number for 26 by adding void years to the backside of the existing contract. However, it does not mean that Brian Gutekunst wants to go that route, seeing he could free up significant $20 million in cap space for 2026 by simply releasing him after this season.
Right.
It just so happens that is very close to the fair market average annual value of right tackle Zack Tom, who's going to be looking to get a new deal as well. So let's say Goody approaches it that way and says, you know what? We're going to move Zack Tom to center. We'll just cut Elgton. If you're going to play, bub, you're going to play under the contract you got, right? Next year, you cut him outright. You free up $20 million in cap space. You kick Zack Tom to center. You got Anthony Belton competing with Jordan Morgan at right tackle. Maybe you do extend Rasheed Walker, or maybe you just move on from Rasheed Walker, and now you've got Jordan Morgan left tackle, Anthony Belton right tackle, and you kind of press forward like that. You know, that doesn't fix the problem, in my opinion, that we ran into in Philly last year, Tim. Right? Like we were talking about lack of offensive line depth. You go sign Jordan or you go sign Aaron Banks and you add a couple draft picks to kind of shore up that offensive line, and then you completely tear it down less than 1 year later. I don't know. I don't know which way this is going to go. I do think Zack Tom is going to be here for a long time, at least the next 3 to 5 years.
I agree. I think that's the priority. And then we got to deal with Big E, and then, we got to make a decision with, Sheed Walker as well. We got to decide what we're going to do with his contract pretty soon. So I don't know, man. I would not want these guys' jobs, man. This is just it's too tough to try and the math ain't mathin', as they say. And it's been said it's tough to you can't pay everybody, and it is a business at the end of the day. And guys are going to want to get their money, and sometimes it doesn't work out. I think if you can keep the old 2 out of 3 ain't bad mentality, keep some pillars, and then keep plugging and playing with draft picks and free agency moves to keep that line strong. But it's going to be tough to get everyone paid.
It is, man. Amelia, what do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, after bringing in Banks and paying him, and then bringing in Belton from the draft, I think that Goody was just looking ahead. I mean, imagine if he didn't bring in an offensive lineman from the draft and bring in the dude in free agency. Elgton goes here, hey, you want me to move to center? I want my money. Then you don't have anybody else you can fall back on. You don't have, that extra pick there. You got Jordan Morgan coming up, but you're running out of spots. And we ran into the problem of depth. So I do think that, right now we're in a good spot. I'm glad Goody did pull the trigger on all this. I'm glad that, he wanted to beef up that offensive line. It's just, I hope for Elton's sake, he kind of squares this away and just move on. Just right. Because I really don't let's figure out what kind of money's going to make it happen, and let's get through this, because our window's here, Elton. We really don't want you to go anywhere. You're not going to get the same anywhere else, and let's make it work.
Yeah. Eldergrim in the chat says, does void years not impact cap for those future years? How much cap have we lost in dead cap this year? I don't know what the dead cap attached this year is, but yes, that would count toward the future cap. So in the scenario I laid out where you kick out $5 million, what it would mean is an extra $2.5 million in cap, in a cap charge for what would be 2027 and then 2028 without Elgton Jenkins on the roster. That's just a very minute example of how you push that cap out if you need to go that route. Now, here's the other thing worth mentioning. Another player we've talked about a lot is Kenny Clark, right? Kenny Clark's cap charge, if I remember correctly, jumps to $30 million next year. There's no way he's going to be playing for $30 million next year. So they could cut him outright or ask him to take a pay cut / restructure to free up space there as well. So even though we're just showing $1.6 million here, that's why I was talking about you can get that cap number back under control real quick. We're just simply talking about Elgton Jenkins and what applies at the moment and whether or not, how much guaranteed money is he wanting. Now, listen, I know there's some people that make the argument that, hey, bub, you're already one of the highest paid centers, right? Here's the issue. It has nothing to do with that average annual value or that cap hit. What it has to do with is the guaranteed money and security from his standpoint. That's what he's looking at, okay? So that's kind of how I'm seeing all that unfold at the moment. All right, it says, I think we already hit that, yeah. And here's the other thing. There's people that are probably hearing my voice, and listen, I try to respect all fans. Everybody's got to right the fan how they want to fan it. I know a good chunk of the fan base, well, you got a contract, you need to honor it, right? Well, he's already one of the highest paid centers, and they tend to always side with the team, right? Mm-hmm. And listen, I do too. Mm-hmm. I love Elgton Jenkins. I love Jordan Love. I loved Aaron Rodgers. I love Brett Favre when he played. The fact is, when he's not a Green Bay Packer, I'd give a rat's ass about him. That's just I'm being honest, right? And if that makes me a bad person, so be it. But you'll also notice if you watch this show or listen to the show on the pod on a regular basis, I tend to lean toward the player's side too. Like, hey, I understand where they're coming from. You got to get your money. Let me give you an example here, okay? In other news, Shawn Ryan recently missed out on a $2 million bonus. Listen to this. Last year, he missed out on a $2 million bonus, falling only 2 snaps short of an accelerator in his contract, showcasing the cold, hard nature of the business in the NFL. That's what Rob Domofsky reported. Earlier this offseason, Ken Ingalls pointed out that Shawn Ryan apparently missed out on his PPE salary bump, finally figured out why. 2 snaps, 2 measly snaps. It cost him millions. Now, go back to the Romeo Doubs situation this past year, right? What did he say? I need to take care of my family. I need, right? He's on that. Listen, it's probably more money than most people who hear my voice make in a year. Don't get me wrong. Some people are out there working blue collar jobs going, boy, I'd like to be making $800,000 or $3 million or $2 million, right? But the reality is he's seen them in practice, not in games at that point necessarily. It later trickled into the games, but he's seen in practice them putting an emphasis on Tavion Wicks. Why? Because Tavion Wicks has one more extra year on his contract and will be cheaper for them to keep rather than extend Romeo Doubs. In this case with Shawn Ryan, what did we see last year? They started rotating him and Jordan Morgan. Now we know why, right? And again, I'm not saying the team is evil for doing that. That's a part of the contract. But I also, the players, the former players, current players that look at that and go, boy, that's some dirty pool. I completely understand that as well. You know what I'm saying, guys? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I don't think that's a practice exclusive to the Packers. I think it's done league-wide pretty much. No. I remember seeing a highlight with Gronk needed a catch or something late in the game in Tampa and convinced Tommy Brady to can a play and throw a slant so he could get his $1 million bonus in garbage time. So, hey, I get it. And, like you said at the top, Clayton, the fan in you wants to support your team because you're a fan of the team first. But you got to understand, man, these guys have a very short window to make their money. These contracts aren't guaranteed. Your career is not guaranteed. At any day, it could be over with for all you know. So I don't fault these players for wanting to get their money at all.
Yeah, and Prince says not like he was benched or anything to cut his snaps, but they rotated him with Jordan Morgan. Like I don't.
And they could do that under the guise of trying to get a rookie acclimated to our offense, right? They don't have to say that it's about Shawn Ryan's bonus.
and here's the other aspect to it too. Maybe what makes this look so bad is 2 snaps. Right, let's be real. That's what makes it look so bad.
Right.
However, they didn't plan on Jordan Morgan getting hurt, so they probably planned on playing Jordan Morgan a little bit more. Therefore, he may have come, 50 snaps short or 80 snaps short. That looks a lot better than 2 snaps. That looks ugly. And I love my Green Bay Packers, but you look at that and go, boy, oh boy, that looks ugly. So, somebody else said something here too. I thought was a great point. Drew said also, I think we would have eaten the $2 million if Ryan could be trusted in pass protection, right? Like it's not like they were like, this was the plan all along, right, Drew? But I'm just saying that's a hell of a coincidence to get within 2 snaps and up. Sorry, didn't hit it.
Yeah, someone nudged him. Whoa! We need a quick sub. A quick sub. Get Travis Glover in there ASAP.
And here's the other thing too. It was I think on Wildy and Tausch they were talking about this. If it doesn't leave me here, it's been a long day. They were also, God, what was it? It's gone. I had it. It tried to hang on, and it's gone. It was hanging on by a thread back here. There was a comment they made about this, and I'm trying to think of what it was, and it was very it was interesting. I just love hearing him, Tauscher and Bulaga talk about this stuff because it's so weird. I want to say it's weird, but it's so enlightening, I guess you could say, because people who don't know, Bulaga replaced Tauscher. So Bulaga comes in, Tauscher's battling injuries. Bulaga takes his job and basically ends Tauscher's career. So That's the fact that they're on a show together and they're giving their insight. And there's obviously no ill feelings there, right? No ill will toward each other. It's just interesting to hear two offensive linemen that kind of overlap for the Green Bay Packers talk about this. Oh, I know what it was now. It came back. See, I filibustered long enough to get it back. And now I'll forget it again. No, but he said what it was Tauscher said, but Jason, they can give him that, or no, Jason said, no, they can't just give him that money under the CBA. And Tauscher went, but Jason, they can restructure his contract. They could do that. They could say, hey, you know what? Let's restructure it and give him $2 million. They could do that. The fact that they don't, again, I don't want to try to shine negative light on the Packers saying that's a bad thing to do. I understand why they don't. That $2 million could come in handy on down the road, right? And it's not my $2 million. It's funny how we always, whether it's a player or an organization, we're always willing to spend somebody else's money, right?
Right.
But anyway, I thought that was a really, really interesting detail there, just to kind of outline both angles. The Packers have expressed confidence in Jenkins' versatility, with general manager Brian Gutekunst stating, quote, we feel like he's got a chance to be an all-pro center, noting Jenkins' experience playing all 5 offensive line positions since being drafted in the second round of 2019. Offensive coordinator Adam Stenavich also told Demoski that Jenkins appeared, quote, open to and excited about the move based on prior conversations, though he acknowledged Jenkins' absence was due to, quote, other reasons unrelated to reluctance about the position switch. And I will say this, Wildy also hinted at he has no problem with moving to center. He actually wanted to play there last year. And again, if his source is who I'm guessing it is, that was Elgton saying, I was open to it last year, but obviously Goody wanted to try to – I say Goody, LaFleur as well, wanted to try to make Josh Myers work, right? So it is what it is there. And then as we kind of wrap up here, Jenkins' absence has already cost him $500,000 workout bonus, as he's missed enough of the offseason program to be ineligible for Demoski. Despite this, the Packers remain optimistic about Jenkins' potential impact at center, particularly for their run-heavy offense, which ranked 5th in rushing last season. The addition of Banks and running back Josh Jacobs is expected to further bolster this focus. Jenkins, who could not be reached for comment, has a history of durability and leadership on the Packers' offensive line, though he has faced injuries, including a torn ACL in 2021 and a sprained MCL in 23, as reported by Demoski. As negotiations continue, his absence underscores the business side of the NFL, with Jenkins aiming to protect his financial future amid a significant role change. So I thought it was kind of important to dive into that. Now we got the whole story. We got sources attached now. We know, all right, this has nothing to do about the position change. It's all business, Tim. And I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm Elgton Jenkins and this is the only hand I have to play, I will sit out all of training camp, because guess what? To the best of my knowledge, he's already missed the $500,000 bonus, right? There is no penalty until week 1 of the season. I don't want him to sit out that long, but he has the leverage to do that. Now, Goody also has the ability to be able to free up cap space and go get your ass out of here, right? That could happen too. So
I would think they'd want to get this figured out, though, before it stretches into camp, because, you know, either way we've got a new center this year, and it's important to get those reps right away with the first team offense, really first and second team offense, getting to know who their starting center is going to be when we start camp. So I got full faith in the front office. They'll figure this out, but they got their work cut out for them for sure.
And Emilio, it's just such a missed opportunity if we can't maximize and capitalize on Elgton Jenkins playing center. I think our offensive line is so much better with him. It's just like the Jair situation, right? For the right number, for the right adjustment, I want him back. With Elgton, it's like this offensive line has a chance to do something special if he's a center. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And we need help on the offensive line a little bit, right? We were unhappy with Josh Myers' performance. We need a guy that we can count on, that Jordan Love has a little bit of, reputation with, little repertoire. I think that's something that really could take this offense to the next level. And just having somebody consistent in there. He was always there. I mean, the only time he got hurt was the Philly game, and that's when we fell apart. But then Goody, refilled it with a little bit more depth. You get Morgan coming back. You brought Belton in. You have to keep churning it out. And I'm, happy that, Elton's trying to get his money. I'm happy that Goody tried to prepare for something like this at the same time, because it's a business for the Packers and the players need money, because that's their livelihood. That's their job. So I think that we can make it fair for each of them.
Yeah, and we got us a Lions fan in the chat, and we'll just say this real quick.
Sit your butt outside.
All right. Hey, you take care, sir. We'll see you on the other side, all right? There you go. We should have just ended the hour one like that. That's the way to do it. I wish you'd have seen that, Tim. Damn it. I kicked him out too early. That would have been beautiful. Like, hey, quick question. What's your kicker doing here, bub? Why does he look like he's making love to the turf? You know what I mean?
Typical classless Detroit Lions fans
Right.
jumping into a rival's podcast to say, "Go Lions, you bums."
I have no Super Bowl appearances.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in.
See you September 7th, buddy.
But I have a banner.